Welcome back to our next episode of Fintech Fridays. I am joined today by Ryan Sandler. Ryan is the founder and CEO of TrueWork. Ryan, welcome to Fintech Fridays.
Thanks so much for having me.
I've heard a ton about you. Like 5 different people said, you got to get Ryan on, you got to hear his story. So I'm excited to have you here. I told you before we hit record, I love to talk to cool people with cool products from cool companies. I'm pretty sure you're going to check the box on all 3 of those. So thanks for joining.
Of course.
So
Of course.
let's dive right in. Let's talk about what led you to found TrueWork. What was the problem you were looking to solve, and then we'll dive into how it's relevant for this mortgage audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So started TrueWork 7 years ago in San Francisco. And, our mission is to create trust in every financial transaction. Really what got me passionate about this space was the complete lack of transparency and privacy that exists when it comes to sharing your sensitive personal financial data. I was, 25 at the time, coming from LinkedIn, where I was a product manager. I built a product there called LinkedIn Salary, so sort of in the space, but pretty just blown away when I discovered this particular business under Equifax around income verification, and then more generally, the amount of data and the granularity of data that's shared every time a consumer gets a new house, gets a new car, gets a new job, rents an apartment. I mean, every major transaction in life, you are sharing everything about you,
Yeah.
as you very well know. And you don't know where that information is going. You don't know if that data is accurate. And it just was crazy to me that there was no transparency in the space at all. So that's what got me super passionate about the space originally. And, as we dug in and saw how broken income verification was, as well as some of these other pieces, realized, not only can we bring a lot of value to consumers, we can bring a ton of value to the lenders themselves. We can greatly speed up the time it takes to approve loan applications. We can bring down the cost of bringing in this data and a whole another set of value props here. But yeah, that was the original kind of source of the passion here.
So was there, besides, maybe observing it or watching it from your seat at LinkedIn, a lot of times I talk to founders and they personally went through some process, right? So my friend Nima, who founded Blend, which is a point of sale system in the mortgage space, basically was inspired by kind of his parents' own challenges with getting a mortgage. So I just wondering if you had a similar aha moment that was like this point in time, based on the knowledge you had, you saw something and said, we got to deal with this.
Yeah, not as personal for me. I was more going and solving other folks' problems. Like, never bought a house, still haven't. But I remember when we were digging in, and one of my co-founders, who was also a former LinkedIn, went and solved their history on Equifax here, and saw that their very detailed income information was shared with, I think it was like American Express, and they had no idea.
Right.
And that was a real aha moment of like, wow, this is a real privacy bonanza, and consumers just have no idea that this information is going out.
So is it's a, I'll be a little not controversial, but they don't know, or they weren't aware because they didn't read the disclosures. It's probably more accurate, right? Because every transaction has some set of disclosures, and I'm a consumer, you're a consumer. I don't read the disclosure. I download an app, or I go to a website and start something and click,
Yep.
right? And it's not until after the fact that you're like, whoa, what did I just do? What did I just agree to? What did I just share? And then how do I get it back?
No, 100%. And it's more the second bucket. And then we talk a lot about explicit consent versus
Yes.
implicit consent.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think non-explicit consent should be illegal, frankly. Like, if you're showing a user a very simple application, and in the background there's hundreds of pages of terms that says we're going to go get everything about you.
Right.
It's there's real moral questions on, is that right? I
Right.
remember one time we came across a website in the mortgage space that literally said in their terms that as soon as you come to this website, don't even click anything. As you come onto our website, we will go and pull information about you. I mean, that's how
Oh,
crazy it is.
yeah. Wow. Well, let's now dive into like the practical or the function of the tool of the TrueWork platform. So if we maybe take it from a uh, consumer applying for their, let's go first time home buyer in the process, applying for the mortgage on their first home they're buying. To describe how your platform is enabling the secure access to that employment and income data, and how the consumer interface looks.
Yeah, so the primary customer is the lender themselves. So the lender has to sign up first
Yep.
for our software. And what TrueWork provides is really unique is we are the only one-stop platform for income verification. You can go into one website or one API as a lender and get over 90% coverage of your applicant base. It's really unheard of in any other vendor, including Equifax themselves. Lenders are used to going and having to manually compile and aggregate a lot of different sources, over a dozen different sources of income data, whether it's from Equifax to payroll companies like TrueWork, asking for documents, asking for pay stubs. I mean, there are so many different ways to verify income. TrueWork combines all of those different methods, including a lot of proprietary data,
Yeah.
on one platform. So that's really powerful, both the lender experience and the consumer experience. As a consumer, I can authenticate one time. I go on the application, I see it says, hey, you consent to share your credit, your income and assets. I click yes, and boom, I'm done.
Yeah.
That is kind of the holy grail experience, is if they don't have to do any work, they know it's going through, and they click it. Sometimes, if the data is not available instantly, we will ask the consumer to maybe log into their payroll or supply a document, but it's all happening on one platform and it's really seamless.
So if I'm thinking about it, and I have some knowledge in this space, so that'll
Sure.
benefit me. But I want to try to ask the question, assuming our watchers, listeners don't have that same knowledge base. So what I heard you describe for me, if I'm thinking about it from the lender seat, but the consumer experience is consumer authenticates on the TrueWork platform. The first thing TrueWork's going to do based on the authentication of that consumer, I assume you've got some data that's been passed over to you that gives you some identifiers on who they are, maybe who they work for, and you're gonna first look in your platform, in your database, to see if you already have the information on that consumer's employment.
That's right.
So,
And we have 50 million people's active records, and
right.
those come through partnerships with ADP, Gusto, Rippling, and other payrolls.
So that first layer doesn't, at this point, beyond the authentication of who the consumer is, doesn't require them to authenticate into their payroll directly.
Exactly.
Got it. So, watchers, listeners, if you're not as familiar with this process, I would describe it as a waterfall. I've heard that described in the industry. So the waterfall would start with the least friction for the consumer, right? Which is, we know who you are. You're Ryan. Oh, we see your information. Boom. Consumer experience is done. Lender gets what they need. Loan goes through the process into underwriting. That's the happy path. Path number two, Ryan's identified. Oh, we didn't find Ryan's employment information in this first pass. Maybe explain now that next action.
Yeah. So what's really unique about True, we have all these different methods all on one platform, all the parts of the waterfall, you might
Yeah.
say. So if it's not available instantly, we call it our instant product, the 50 million. We go to a product called credentials, and that's where the user is going to log in with username or password into their payroll or into the Uber app or DoorDash app, wherever they get paid, and we will pull the information back, standardize it, and give it back to lender.
Got it.
If that doesn't work, some people don't know their passwords, some people, get off. We might ask the user, hey, you can't log into your payroll. How about you upload a document? Maybe it's, your most recent pay stubs, maybe it's your W-2, maybe it's your most recent tax returns. Okay, maybe that doesn't work. We keep going down, right?
Yeah.
And where there's other methods. We actually get it from the IRS as one of the methods. There's plenty of other, kind of smaller methods. And then what the real catch-all is, and we can't find it any way else, is our product called Smart Outreach. And Smart Outreach uses machine learning and AI to get in touch with employers through automation. And so, there might be someone whose company doesn't even use a payroll software, right? They work for some small mom and pop store, and they're, using spreadsheets to track who gets paid what.
Right.
And so the only way to get information is to call, email, or fax that employer, that small employer. So we will automatically send emails or make phone calls or send faxes to the person, to the HR person or payroll person or business owner, and get that information back right away to lender. And that happens all very, very quickly through this, one large machine learning platform. If that makes sense.
So having been a lender before, absent a tool like TrueWork, that last phase would have been a loan processor typically placing phone calls and then leaving a voicemail, and then 3 days go by and there's been no return voicemail, leave another voicemail. Employer calls back on a Wednesday at noon, but the processor's at lunch. This whole game of chase that goes back and forth. You guys have, what I just heard was it literally is a one-stop shop. Lender places order and then right down the line. And I think you alluded to this. You said it's over 50 million records that are in that instant. So then, do you have some statistics that if we were to fast forward to that last sliver, like what do you think that is on average? Is it 15? Is it 20%? Is it 10% of the time that you have to get down to that layer? Is there any stats on that?
I'd say at least 30%.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And to give some context, about 20% of employers across the country do not use payroll.
Interesting.
So there will always be 20% that you have to do that step, which is pretty crazy. And as you just mentioned, this was one of the longest pools of a mortgage process. The thing that it would slow it down more than anything is that they needed direct from employer proof that you get paid this much. And sometimes it takes 3 days, 5 days, sometimes it takes 2 weeks to get that information back. And why it's so beneficial to have this centralized on TrueWork is, we're doing millions and millions of these requests a year. And once we've done a few requests at an employer, we can do it really quickly. We know who in HR, who in payroll answers it. We know what they give and what they don't. What times of the day are they open? When is the best time to call them? And we're using automation to do all those steps.
I was going to ask you, because you talked about machine learning and AI, that you just answered the question. It's all the learnings. So if it's a brand new employer you guys have never engaged with before, boom, this is Sally Smith. Sally Smith is who we talked to at this number. I love that. That's so amazing.
And that's a piece that you can imagine. It's really hard for someone else to rebuild that or compete with that. It's years and years and so much data of learning going into this algorithm. When we compare it to what existed in the market before, Equifax had a call center in Costa Rica, and every time they got a request, they're calling for the first time. There was no learning. There was no knowledge on how to do it faster the next time.
It's amazing. I remember. So I grew up in the mortgage industry, so I've always worked either for a lender or for a company that supported a lender. I remember getting, I think it was our second home that we bought somewhere in the early 2000s. Needed to get employment income verified. I was getting the loan through the company I work for, and it took 8 days for my loan processor, who worked for the loan originator, to get the HR department, who we all worked for, to verify income. It was like, really?
It's crazy. It's the last thing on their list. They have so much to do, right? Until you try and go and annoy them and bug them and say, why aren't you answering?
That's what I ended up having to do.
I'm sure. They don't care.
No, it's amazing where we've come, but I'm still like you describing that 20% tail that may always be out there. I'm guessing there's somebody that's got, that creative mind like yourself who's thinking about how do I go help that 20% of these employers create some automation to improve their business, which by extension will also improve their employees and the employees that become consumers and home buyers. There's still a lot of opportunity in this space to expand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Still the early innings. It's crazy.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. I always love to talk to founders, and you're like FinLocker. We've been at it for 7-ish years like you, but pretty much still in that startup mode in terms of, innovation and growing. So what are some things that you're comfortable sharing that are on the near term roadmap that would be interesting for the audience to learn?
Yeah, so near term, we're still super focused on income, the space of income. I mean, it's $5 billion plus industry. We still have a small sliver of that, and
Yeah.
there's just so much room to grow, as you mentioned, to help lenders and help other folks in the space. Having said that, income is used by a lot of different verticals. Mortgage is the biggest, and it's the most urgent of need that we broke into. I mean, today we have 20 of the top 25 mortgage lenders. We have thousands and thousands of smaller lenders as well. It's a pretty well penetrated. And
Yep.
now you see us kind of expanding to is other verticals that really need this data. And so the one that's probably the most exciting to me is tenant screening, property management. This is something that we just launched in the past few months, is growing incredibly fast, and is exciting because these folks in property management never historically verified the income.
Right.
They'd pull your credit, they'd ask maybe for your pay stubs or bank statement, but that's it. They were
Yep.
checking if it was real, and they're getting a really quick wake up call to why they need to verify. I mean, essentially, fraud rates are at all time high. I mean,
Right.
we're talking some property managers 10% or higher of their applications are fraudulent. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And the cost of eviction is going up and up every year. So they're very desperately looking at alternative data sources and saying, we need to verify this information, and we are willing to pay to verify this information because it is really hurting our bottom line. So that's a really exciting one. And frankly, Equifax has very small penetration,
Yeah.
under 5-10% in property management. So this is all new, a lot of education, new kind of challenge where instead of saying, hey, this is why we're better than a competitor, we're convincing you for the first time of why you need a product like this. And that's always exciting.
Yeah. I
And
love
then,
that.
outside of property management, you have auto lending, personal lending, background checks, insurance, public sector, government agencies. I mean, there's a very large world here that wants to use income, and it is a matter of time on how deeply we get penetrated in these other verticals. So that's a lot of the things that we're really excited about. We're also constantly expanding the coverage
Right.
of how much we can verify. As I mentioned, we're now at 90%. We want that to be as close to 100% as possible, and bringing in newer methods into the process to make that happen. And then the final thing, and it was a long-winded answer, is once we've really won income or really penetrated income, what we're really excited about next is what other kind of data assets can we bring onto our platform. We have all the lenders in the country trusting us. We have all the consumers in the country trusting us. Can we bring in other pieces of information, like your credit, like your assets, these other pieces that are used in an application, all onto the same platform? And we think that can be really powerful. And so we call this space, as Mark, we call it financial identity.
Yep.
Very similar kind of market that I'm sure that you guys consider yourselves in, where this is all the things that a lender is looking at in determining your ability to repay a loan. And eventually we want to go after all of that.
I love it. I love it. We could probably have a conversation here for hours and compare notes on the journey and the consumer experience. But this has been super helpful. I've learned a ton that I thought I knew about TrueWork that I didn't know. So it's been super helpful. Anything else you want to share, Ryan, before we sign off for this Friday?
No, I mean, I think we're just really excited to help more and more customers automate more of these processes and bring down costs. And so, if you're a mortgage lender, if you're an auto lender, if you're any type of institution that wants to bring in verified income into your application flows, please give me a call, give me an email, Ryan@truework.com. We would love to have a conversation.
Love it. And I'll make sure when we post this that we include. We'll tag your TrueWork and yourself, Ryan, in our post on LinkedIn when we get this out to the audience. So I appreciate, man. I appreciate you coming on today. I love learning about TrueWork. You guys are definitely you're definitely helping lenders and consumers kind of streamline this process. And we're all focused in this industry on, at the end of the day, the end consumer. And one of the biggest challenges facing the consumer is the cost of getting mortgage financing. So I appreciate what you all are doing to help kind of tackle this particular segment. So thanks again for joining me, Ryan.
No, thank you. A lot of fun.
All right, everybody. We'll see you back in 2 weeks on FinTech Fridays. Thanks, y'all.